Astronauts to the moon.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue.
What you're seeing here is a mirage. Mirage.
What's going on, everyone? It's Jeranism, back with another video for you. Just have a couple of things to show, some moon stuff and some other little tidbits, and a quick update for those waiting for the results of the plane tracking. It's going to take me a few more days. The compass reading was way off. Looks like it's from the South Atlantic anomaly, and also wish it would have been daytime. Photos weren't able to show anything out the window, and you could never really tell what he was over. But I am looking at the compass log, which he took every 3 minutes. But that's going to take a little while because I've got to understand the South Atlantic anomaly, and I currently do not. So, it won't be definitive for a while. What we did learn from yesterday's video is that now a known fact is that GPS does not track planes, but it's supposed to. It's supposed to be required by 2017. So, we shall see. On to today. Before we get started, I was able to get an astronaut to come on and to tell us a little bit about his career path, how he became an astronaut. I found it interesting, so here it is, a Jeranism exclusive.
I like to seek out the little kids and get them out of the way. Found out that I hate some things in my heart. It's something I really like doing. I found my passion, and it's faking space. And I found out that in an early stage, before like 3 or 4 years old, I was watching people fake walking on the moon, and I wanted to learn to be just as shitty so I could learn to fake space. I had the bug to be a dirtbag. So in order to get to my goal of lying and faking space someday, I studied all that I could about Satan. I worked really hard at schools. Indoctrinating kids is very important. I studied techniques and things, science, magic. I didn't even know what entertaining was till I was in clown college. But when I did get the call, I started cheering and studying psychotic science, and that taught us how to set up children nicely, as well as my newfound career, faking space in a plane. But NASA picked me up as a satanic specialist when I was 29 years old, and I spent a lot of time over in Russia working on the final parts of the indoctrination space simulation. And finally, I'm a two-faced whore who faked space, but it wasn't even faked subtle. It was about the witchcraft. And I'll tell you what, it was the first time I saw such a disgrace. It was so beautiful.
Wow, thank you for that, astronaut. Let's see what Geraldo Rivera is talking about. I believe they're talking about astronauts as well.
Well, that's one of the points. First of all, we found never-before-seen footage of them faking part of the photography, which is in a funny thing happened on the way to the moon, which has been licensed 5 times and can only now be viewed on YouTube.
Like what? You're saying that, for instance, there's no stars in the original video. Couldn't that be a function of the fact that the video was not enhanced and not digitally remastered, that the quality, you know, even now we see loss of quality sometimes with satellite transmissions, etc.?
Well, their excuse that there are no pictures of the stars because the iris was closed is true. The fact is they took no pictures of the stars by themselves with an exposure setting perfect for them. They took a jeep to the moon, but they never took a telescope because they weren't there, and they had no way of accurately faking the constellations, which may someday prove to be non-existent. And they had no way of accurately faking the constellations, which may someday prove to be non-existent. And they had no way of accurately faking the constellations, which may someday prove to be non-existent.
Were they in Hollywood? Where were they?
Well, they were probably at a military base, one secure, that makes secret aircraft.
In Roswell, New Mexico, maybe? It could be.
Well, you know, you say you're open-minded. I hope you got a chance to watch the film
listen, I'm
and the
listening.
footage.
I am absolutely listening. But let me bring in someone to help you.
Have you seen the movie?
I haven't. I don't go to the movies very often, and that's not the top of my list.
No, the DVD of the fake photography.
Oh, I haven't. But we'll show everybody whatever we have. Let me bring on someone to assist you. My next guest, Aaron Rainin, started out believing in the official version of history, which is what I and most people believe. When he heard about the erased NASA tapes 5 years ago, he also became suspicious that the United States had engineered what essentially was a gigantic hoax as Cold War propaganda to scare off the Soviets. Aaron, you know, tell us why you have changed your mind and now become a skeptic.
Sure. Thanks for having me on,
You're
Geraldo.
welcome.
I really appreciate it. Well, let me first clarify. I was paid by the state of Ohio in 1999 to spend a year trying to prove we actually landed on the moon. I was paid by the state of Ohio in 1999 to spend a year trying to prove we actually landed on the moon. And I was a total believer,
Wait, you were paid
before I
with
began-
taxpayer money from the state of Ohio?
The state of Ohio. Yep, the state
Who was
of
the
Ohio
governor?
said-
Another issue, but go ahead, tell us more.
Anyway, so I took a year and I traveled across the country, and folks, I've actually posted it on YouTube. It's called Did We Go? And the challenges, Geraldo, everywhere I went, it was just amazing. Moon rocks falling in Antarctica, Neil Armstrong's silence. But I was the first to report, and you played the clip earlier tonight, that all the science data, the telemetry data was missing. Now, Geraldo, for NASA to come out and say that all the tapes were erased, I mean, it's incredible. Geraldo, this isn't just one tape. This is rooms of tape labeled Apollo 11 moon landing. Someone had to physically go and erase it. And it just, you know, I really, in my heart, Geraldo, I want us to go. And I know all your viewers want us to go. The challenges in trying to prove we land the moon are great, and I hope we landed on the moon, but come on, Geraldo.
Okay,
Erasing
let me bring us
man's
back
first-
down to earth, folks. We're also joined in L.A. by Bill Nye, the science guy. Bill's an educator, engineer. We trust him. He contributes to The Skeptic magazine, which might be appropriate for this topic. But Bill, Aaron's right about erasing these tapes. I mean, I don't believe for a second that we faked this thing, but how in the world do you erase the tapes of the most historic event in 2,000 years? I mean, it's not like it was a bar mitzvah. You know what I mean?
So let me start with this. What tape are you showing if all of the tapes were erased?
Well, they lost them for 5 years.
No,
they
what-
found them in
they
the
lost-
files, they
apparently-
said, in Australia, and they're enhancing those. I mean, it seems, you know, it gives
I can
a hope
clarify that
to the
if you want.
skeptics.
No, okay, it's my turn, kids. Okay. So what happened apparently is they lost one tape.
Science is a liar sometimes.
So what happened apparently is they lost one tape, and it was in Australia, which is part of the Deep Space Network, the DSN. And this is these are NASA tapes, literally on the other side of the world from headquarters. One of them got misplaced. People believe quite reasonably that this tape was especially high quality, and it got lost. Stuff happens. It's 40 years ago. It does not in any way qualify as evidence that NASA faked it.
Yeah, well, basically,
Final
according to
argument,
NASA,
dude.
every single TV tape from every single moon mission is lost. Ask Ron Howard. He's the one who
not
asked
what
for
I
them to be
heard.
transferred for 70-millimeter projection.
Okay, that's
and if you
hard.
watch his
Aaron, your
movie
final
about the moon
statement,
landings, 95% of it is reenactments.
Aaron, final statement.
Okay. You know, it's very challenging to try to prove we landed on the moon, and it shouldn't be challenging. The tape should be there. There should be plenty of evidence.
And you say Buzz and his buddies really went.
Absolutely. I
And
spent a
the
lot of time
evidence
with Buzz Aldrin,
overwhelming.
by the way.
Evidence overwhelming.
Absolutely.
And the
All the sailors on the aircraft carriers who watched the thing come back, the thousands
their
of people
story is
who
that
were
they were
at
actually
Cape
in a
Canaveral.
their story is that they were in a transport airplane. They threw the thing out of the transport airplane. It landed. Anyway.
Well, tough spot. You got Bill Nye, the I Lie guy, one tape, and the upstanding and open-minded Geraldo Rivera here. The tapes were definitely searched for. Between 1979 and 1985, over 140,000 tapes from NASA were returned to NASA, and from there, no one knows. Those 140,000 tapes were in 2,612 boxes, and 13,000 of those tapes were from Apollo missions 11 and earlier. NASA says that those tapes were reused because of a 1980s data tape shortage. So you have the number one achievement in the history of humanity, and the high-res 30 frame per second original tapes and telemetry are gone. They could turn up, though, just like we could go back to the moon. But let fanboys make their excuses. Let Bill Nye tell his lies. One tape. One tape, Bill? Wow. Nevertheless, please check your garage. We are currently looking for 2,612 boxes, each holding about 50 reels. Now, if you want to know my opinion, well, let's go back to the early MTV days, maybe 1983. The Eurythmics. You'll see the Saturn V in the background, the Apollo 11 craft, and the good old globe because sweet dreams are made of this. Because in reality, people don't go to the moon. The Eurythmics knew. You still behind the times?
Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something.
Well, I'm looking for truth, and sometimes a picture tells 1,000 words. What do you see here? A, relaxed guys who just got back from being the first men on the moon? Or B, to test men who were told to fake it and can barely talk at all?
We're going to divert a little bit from the format of past press conferences and talk about the things that interested us most.
I'm guessing that if you believe that NASA went to the moon in 1969, then you also believe that China landed on the moon in 2013? If so, I suggest that you check your belief system, because it sure is funny that you will claim to be a skeptic but accept total nonsense. The media wouldn't even cover the Chinese landing. Thank goodness that NASA covered it. They've got this web page here, the Chang 3 U2 galleries, and here is the image gallery. Yes, that's one image in the entire gallery. Let's look at some data. Thanks, NASA. This is very helpful. Launch, lunar orbit insertion, lunar landing. Wow. Looks like NASA went another way to cover this one. Just the other day, we saw the launch of the Japanese HTV-6 rocket, which had to go up to the International Space Station since Russia's didn't quite make it. And you see this picture here. This is kind of the last thing we saw as it went out of sight. The next view was this picture. And again, we get CGI data and results. Pretty embarrassing for this day and age. They keep putting out this shite. If you look at the comments, people are even questioning it. Where's the onboard camera? The next person says, yeah, it seems only we put cameras on our rockets. Next person says, their job is to put a satellite into space, not your entertainment. Next person says, yeah, but some folks would like to see more than just a CGI image once the vehicle gets into orbit. And the final guy in this thread said, I'm one of them, but they have their priorities, especially with the Japanese. It's getting better, especially with the onset of private sectors who seem to cater more to the public and have an actual PR. SpaceX, for example. They have onboard footage from launch all the way to orbit. But wait is the thing. You can't just go slapping cameras all over those rockets.
The second umbilical has been retracted. We have main engine start. Engines coming up to turbo speed. All engines at flight speed. And liftoff. We have liftoff of the 65th Progress resupply vehicle, beginning a 2-day journey to the International Space Station.
I don't know about you, but for me, it's about as exciting as a wet fart. So this was the failed December 1st mission. You can call it Progress 65. I will call it MG35. That stands for Money Grab 35 million. Now let's watch it here. Not the official story, but it certainly looks like here, and I'm sure you will agree, is this thing not just falling down? Did it not already fail? Goodbye. Goes out and everything. Oh, nope, here it is. Okay, thank God for CGI. Ooh, I needed that computer graphic. I almost thought that thing was falling. But it's fine. It's heading up towards space. How could I have been so wrong?
The second stage engine up and running in good shape. All parameters reported to be functioning normally.
Here they talk about how all parameters are normal. It's tracking in nominal shape. Every stage is perfect. All telemetry is perfect. So they say.
The third stage engine continues to fire as advertised. No issues reported.
Again, it's as advertised, tracking in nominal shape. No issues reported. Look at this camera that pans across the railroad tracks. That's pretty cool. That must have been expensive.
The roll, pitch, and yaw of the Soyuz booster and its associated Progress resupply craft, all reported to be in nominal fashion. Telemetry being received at the Russian Mission Control Center in bits and pieces. indicating that the navigational antennas on the Progress have deployed. We're still standing by for confirmation that the solar arrays deployed.
A statement from the Russian Space Agency says the ship was lost as it flew some 190 kilometers over southern Russia. Let's find out more about what happened. Tom Sater is here to explain. So what in the world happened that they lost this capsule?
Yeah, just after 6 minutes. Now, the cargo supply today, besides food and supplies, is also carrying with them some new and improved spacesuits for spacewalks, a greenhouse for experiments and maybe growing some food, a new waste management system, all Progress failures. This video comes from the malfunction back in May of 2015 when it was not able to gain control from this orbit. And of course, they just spin like this and sometimes burn up. So again, it never made it into its orbit. You can track the...
You certainly would, wouldn't you? I mean, it's not like humans ever die in these launches. Just a normal launch to the ISS, but the time that we've got a bunch of supplies and a rocket insured for $35 million, it goes missing, which doesn't even make sense. The Soyuz has 3 compartments. 2 of them burn up in the atmosphere on the way back. 1 of them allows 3 people, 3 human beings, to come back, land in a remote field in Russia where it's protected by the military and there's no cell service. Yeah, no admittance for anybody. Nothing funny to see here. Keep moving, folks. Move along. No money grab here. Anyway, the rocket's lost. So they say, even though it looked to me like it went up and came right back down. Who knows? Who am I? Who am I to... Stop that, please. Well, I don't know the cost of this whole rocket thing, but I do know it's insured for $35 million. So somebody's getting paid, and it ain't me. Okay, so at this site, which is a NASA.gov site called Survey, scientists have unveiled a plan for a lunar base. Equipped with a dome so you can always see Earth, brilliant idea, and an emergency underground shelter and individual working and sleeping units per employee. Pretty sweet. And it will be built in the year 2050. It's 33 years away. Yeah, that's a good planning date, all right. In 2050, I'm going to go to my Aunt Loretta's for Thanksgiving. What about you guys? What? No plans for 2050 yet? Oh, because you're not crazy fools playing make-believe. Gotcha. Just imagine, we need $1 million from each of the countries per year so that we can long-term plan this. Then, when half the planners die, or one of the other several million scenarios play out where this just becomes a dumbass idea, someone steals more money. But no one cares. No one cares. It's all for space. No one even cares that we don't have a 24/7 live feed of Earth because NASA has better things to do, like plan moon bases 33 years in the future. Between 26 nations, even though only one nation has quote-unquote sent anyone there. Wow. This is ridiculous. In a related story, NASA says they'll be back on the moon by 2020. And if you thought it was funny watching them pop that rover out of the homeless tweaker shelter, now let's see them get this thing out of there. That should be comical. 2020 NASA? Sure. Now, I'm not sure if you can see it yet, so let me try and spell it out for you. I am seeing a lot of similarities between science and religion. So I want to see if you see the same thing. So let's take a look at the similarities and obvious connections that one can draw between science and religion. And if you're asking, I am for neither. Obviously, both have clear signs of being completely and totally corrupted by men. Men with greed, malice, hate, pride, the desire for money, control, power. It all has corrupted what once was good. Religion, originally, was probably a love and respect for the Creator, each other, and all creations. Easy, simple, done, over. Science was the pursuit of truth through questioning, research, hypothesis, testing, analyzation, and communication. Both are no longer even shells of their former selves. Corruption and greed and backstabbing and lies are what we get. If I have learned one thing, just one little thing on this earth, it is that humans corrupt all things. And if you want to get technical, I'm actually talking 98% about men. So really, men corrupt all things. If we touched it, it's a mess. And if it's not yet, give us some time. Yeah, so other things I see are like excuses. Both groups make excuses. Religious for their priests or any kind of corruption that's going on in the church. Same thing with science when there's anything going wrong in a peer-reviewed paper or with evidence fudging, or even the case with the bunch of pedophilia and kiddie torture that was found by people who worked at NASA who purchased it with their PayPal or their credit cards. And last time I checked, I think only a few of them were even reprimanded, and we'll never know their names. They were protected. Faith, in both, you got to have faith. You got to have faith in the book if you are religious. You got to have faith in the men if you are scientific. As far as tithing in the church, they ask you for 10%. With NASA, you are required to give them your money. Education in churches, you can pay for it if you'd like your child to get a religious education. By sending them to public school, you are getting your religion taught for free. That is the religion of scientism, the religion of NASA. As far as origins in churches, creation is usually taught alongside evolution. Yes, it's heavily favored towards creation. On the other hand, you've got in schools, in public schools, you've got one way being taught, and that is evolution. The other one is considered idiotic. How about high priests? You got your high priests in religion, obviously, and at NASA and in the scientific world, you obviously have your high priests as well, your Neil deGrasse, your Bill Nye, your Richard Dawkins. How about dogma? Religion obviously has its foundations, its beliefs, its dogmas that are set by an authority. And then you've got NASA and science, who also has foundations, dogmas, and beliefs. While you may call them truth, one day you may see that you've been wrong about that. And then you'll notice that you followed a religion that you thought was the truth. An example of that may be the spinning Earth or the non-centrally located Earth. Both things have never been proven. However, they are mandatory dogmas for the religion of scientism. Excommunication is in both camps. In the religious world, you will get kicked out and ostracized for questioning the dogmas or trying to bring change. At NASA and with science, the same thing. If you think you can get away with submitting a paper that says that relativity is wrong, then you don't understand science or the men in it. We got graduation. In religion, they graduate their high priests, those who take the required classes or go to the seminary. They become the deacons, the bishops, the cardinals, and so on and so forth. In science and NASA, of course, you have your professors and your PhDs, and those are the ones who graduate with the required classes and become teachers, professors, etc. And they basically memorize the dogmas. They don't go out and investigate. They don't go out and research. They don't go out and observe. The ones with the PhD are the ones who memorize the text the best. Next, we got devils. Religion obviously says that anything coming from outside is from the devil. NASA and science says anything coming from outside is a conspiracy theory. It's nonsense. It's of the imbecilic, science-denying populace. Next, we got justification. The Bible believers justify all of God's works. Everything that he does in the Bible is completely fine by them. Science justifies all the things that science does. Doesn't matter what, it is justified. How about the miracles? We've got a man who walks on water, and we've got man that walks on the moon. Both are miracles, both cannot be seen, both probably never happened. How about the mythical? They've got the angels and demons on the religious side, and the dark matter and dark energy on the science side. How about the holy texts? We've got the Bible on one side, and we've got Newton's Principia on the other. We've got the martyrs. Jesus Christ was hung on the cross. Giordano Bruno was burned at the stake. We have prophecy in both camps. Religion, it's done by the prophets, and in science, it's done by the models. We've got our miraculous events, like in religion, water into wine. In science, rockets into space. How about another one? Religion, they've got heaven and life ever after. Science, Mars, and life on Europa. Basically the same thing there. Religion, people are all sinners. Science, all people are dumb. In religion, God works in mysterious ways. In science, gravity works in mysterious ways. In religion, we have that people say you have to trust that people saw Jesus rise from the dead, and that he did walk on water, and that he did raise the dead. In science, you have to trust that Cavendish really did do some stupid experiment in a shed with some lead balls. All right, let's quickly discuss one of the fundamental beliefs of both science and religion. Number one, religion claims that the earth was created in 7 actual literal days, whereas the other, science, said that it took a billionth of a second. Basically, religion says God did it. Science says we're accidental. So, the moral of the story here is both are identical. Look at atheists and scientism believers. You have them going around laughing at creation when they themselves also believe in creation. They must. The heliocentric model only works with that. Evolution is nonsense, and so are talking mules. Alright, so it may seem like a joke to some people, but one day it won't be so funny, because both groups have the exact same common denominator, and that is that they have you fooled. If there's one lesson I could pass on, it would always be don't trust men. Look around you, look at human beings, and tell me, is there any reason why you should trust one that wrote a book thousands of years ago who says it's from your God? If God hasn't told you, I'd watch out for that one. So, as I always say though, don't believe me. Please don't trust me. You need to find your own truth. For me, I would just never watch any channel that upset me the way some of you act like I upset you. If you're truly on your own journey, then you'll watch my videos, agree with a few things, disagree with a few others, and then move along. That's how easy it is. If you're not on a search for truth, then you're just here to validate your beliefs, and that isn't smart at all. When I watch videos, I take the good that I hear and leave the bad, and then I move on. When I stop getting helpful or additional info from a channel, I just stop watching it. Wait till you see down in the comments from all the haters. If you think my info is garbage, why are you watching my videos over and over again? Why torture yourself? What I do is simply make videos as a summary of my own research. If you don't like my research, that's fine. It's not for you. It's for me. So, how hard was that? You're free to believe in the ball if you want for all time. Love it, embrace it, hug it, spin on it, fly through space on it. Eclipse the sun with it. Next, I think we have a unique find from one of the moon missions. This is Apollo 15. You're about to see three guys who don't look very pleased, like they just are coming back from the moon. They look like they just faked a moon landing. You'll see here, and then we'll pick it up from when they start to try and pick up the eclipse.
Regain your balance and go ahead. And I have a question. Do you want to have the photos of the lunar eclipse with a television now, or do you want us to get on with the camera photos? Because if that's the case, we have to turn the lights out in here.
Roger. We're going to skip down to the last question, Dave.
Okay, thank you.
Now, here they try and set up the camera for a lunar eclipse. Now, watch what happens right about now. See that bright window with the ball in the middle of it? Let's keep going. See if it looks like anything to you. Coming up here again in a second. What could that possibly be? They're in the spacecraft. They're nowhere near the Earth. We got a big white blotch with a little silhouette circle in the middle. Let's continue. As far as I'm concerned, I think these are whistleblower videos. Just like the one that Bart Cybro found. This is another one. These astronauts were screaming for help by showing us exactly the fakery that's going on. They're about to show you the eclipse now. I wonder where that came from. Couldn't possibly be the silhouette in the window. That'd be insane. That'd be a conspiracy theory.
15, Houston, we'd like to ask if you've got full zoom there.
Right, it's all the way up.
Could you please give us ALC to peak?
I think we are. Just stand by one.
So, it is truly time to wake up and look at the signs that are everywhere, including this video right in front of you. Because maybe you don't realize yet that 400 years ago, some mathematicians got together and concocted a very, very large deception. Okay, it's bigger than very, very large. It's the biggest ever. Did you know that until around 1700, the term mathematics meant astrology? And from 1500 to 1800, the term basically changed over time. Because you see, math with the axioms must correspond to reality. It does not prove reality. If they do not, then they are only as good as the model they stem from. So the astronomy works on paper. The sun at 93 million miles works mathematically. But does it respond and reflect reality? Well, good thing we have science. But if the scientific method has been skipped or hasn't been applied at all, then we are stuck with a false foundation and a large team of science professionals who will fit every single observation and discovery into that faulty system. The only other choice they have would be to admit that they were wrong. And believe me, Neil deGrasse is never going to admit that he was wrong. And not just wrong, but wrong all along. And not just wrong all along, but terribly, stubbornly wrong. Teaching what is false as truth. Arguing on behalf of deception, and calling those who questioned it, those who were skeptic about things being purported as fact, are called idiots, when it was their religious dogma that was to blame. Okay, and in indoctrinating news, Richard Branson back in the news, and the article reminds us of one of the many people who have already paid the $1.5 million to secure a seat on Branson's spaceplane. He's not the only one. Over 400 people have already paid that price. So we keep waiting. Will it become reality, or will people ever wake up? Sad thing is that they love the lie too much. What do I mean by that? Well, look at the people who talk about Mars. That's how indoctrinated they are. A place where we can't live because we can't breathe, with nothing you can eat, with nothing you can drink, and it takes 8 months to get there, and people are lining up and losing their minds because somebody says we might be going. That is crazy. Branson's website actually says that it's had 700 signups, all at $250,000 each, and you've got to pay for it up front. And you don't think people love this lie so much that they're handing money over to people who are going to steal it from you? Or do you think this plane is going to go to space? Let's watch it here in its test. In 2014, the co-pilot crashed and died. So this is kind of Virgin getting its wings to fly again. So let's see how many people went to space and how was weightlessness. Let's see. Oh, what happened? It looks like it's just falling down. And people are excited over a falling glider. Here comes the glider. Yep. This is newsworthy. Where do I sign up for the $250,000? Is there a website I go to? Because this thing's about to happen. They're one step away from going to space. I mean, how can anybody question this? Where do I sign up? When are they going? Tomorrow? The next day? They just dropped a plane out of the sky and it landed. Could have done that in 1920. Next we have Bill Nye giving a public service announcement about an idea of throwing our trash out into space. Hey, look, there goes the ISS.
Now, one thing I really want your generation to embrace is that the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth. There's no place to go. There's no place to throw your trash. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe not you, but your kids develop ways to mine our landfills. We throw away so much valuable stuff right now, especially raw materials. I may be wrong, of course, always may be wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised if that turns out to be economically reasonable. Let go of the idea of throwing stuff off the Earth. It's just too easy a solution.
Yeah, burning up things in the atmosphere is just too easy of a solution because it doesn't exist.
Is the Earth flat or round? It's round. Okay, now let's see. How do we go about proving that? Go to the seashore. Go to a seashore and figure out why you can't, if you live on the East Coast, figure out why you can't see Spain from the East Coast of North America.
This is a scientist who's never heard of smog, fog, mist, dew, haze, smoke, steam, moisture, air, rain, fog, sleet, wind, clouds.
If you'd like, look at pictures from space where you see the Earth as a sphere. Those pictures are not faked. And I'll tell you, just if nothing else, here's why you can tell they're not faked.
Oh, thank goodness. Here comes our scientific thought of the year. Why are they not fake, Bill?
Just to create the paperwork that NASA has created, in NASA in this one case, just the paperwork to send anything out in space, to send people into orbit or to send them to the moon. That amount of paperwork would make faking it prohibitively expensive. No one could afford to generate that much documentation.
But wait, they already paid. They've already got them.
And you guys, come on. And you guys, come on. And you guys, come on. Everybody watches newscasts. You all use mobile phones. You all see airplanes fly around. Navigation's changed the world, by the way. What are you wearing? You're wearing stuff that came from another part of the world on a ship. It didn't get here by magic. It got here through science.
Yeah, talk to me about your science. How can someone say that the amount of paperwork that is needed to really send people to space is so much that someone who is making the same amount of money but not spending it on actually going to space would not be able to afford to fake the paperwork? Did I just break the internet? I think you broke it. That's dumb.
But it would be harder. It would say people think it was actually hard to get to the moon. Yes, it was hard, certainly, but it would have been way harder to hoax it.
Yes, today.
What did you say? What? It's harder to, in a studio, 248,000 miles. Oh boy.
I can't just, if there were ever a state secret that the government wanted to keep, it would be the behavior of President Clinton's genitals, okay? But that got out. That got out. And only 3 people knew this. 3. All right? You're going to hoax a moon landing by telling 10,000 scientists and engineers to keep it secret for 40 years? That's not how humans behave.
Nor is it how hoaxes happen. You know, you guys with this whole, oh, they couldn't keep a blowjob a secret, is just mind-boggling. Do you really think that conspiracy theories are all just garbage? Why don't you look at one of the U.S. Supreme Court justices during the FDR administration, Felix Frankfurter, said the real rulers in Washington are invisible and exercise power from behind the scenes. How could they do that? You mean there's people colluding together behind closed doors that may not tell us all the truth? That sounds like a conspiracy theory. Can't possibly be the truth. All right, and speaking about conspiracy theories, let's get on with our final thought about stars in space. Let's get to the bottom of this. I'm going to start that over again just to make sure I saw what I thought I saw. Did you start the ISS show with a green screen? Yep, they did. I'm sure they'd never use it to fool us. How dare you insinuate men could ever lie? I'm appalled. Alrighty, we're going to get to the bottom of this. Can you see stars from space? First up, Dawn. Well, then you got Alik Pettit and Mike Massissimo. Watch these two and you decide. Are these two men honest? After that, we're going to hear some others, and we will get our definitive answer. Here goes.
Whilst
From
in
Mark
space,
Cameron. This is from Mark Cameron.
Whilst in space, have you ever looked away from Earth into the black void?
Yeah.
All
because
the
you
time.
can see. Yeah. Because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
Yeah. It's not a black void. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
Yeah, you can, and there's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons.
You see the gas. Magellan clouds of the Milky Way
you see
galaxy.
the Magellanic Clouds.
Magellanic, see, I just wanted the Magellan
there's a large
clouds.
one
I didn't
and a
want
small one, right?
Yeah.
And then you can see the zodiacal lights.
Whoa.
Those are amazing. Right before
the lights
sunrise.
of the zodiac.
The lights of the zodiac, the zodiacal lights. Okay, you can see those.
Which are
and
what?
Then you
Explain
can see
those
the
to
upper.
us.
Oh well, it's,
I mean, I know what they are, but explain it to the audience.
It's this vertical column of fuzzy glow that comes up perpendicular to the horizon shortly before the sunrise.
Every time?
No, it depends on the viewing angle and such.
Right.
Not every time, but if the viewing conditions are right, you see this big fuzzy glow that goes way up high, maybe 30 or 40 degrees above the horizon, perpendicular to the horizon, and it's this fuzzy glow. It's a zodiacal light.
But one thing to add to this, I think, which is kind of interesting about being able to look into the black void, is that we can't do that when the sun is out here on Earth. And it's not because the sun is so bright. It's because this atmosphere. Right? The light comes through the atmosphere and refracts, and we see blue. It scatters. We see blue.
Scatters.
So what we see is we see the blue color because the way the light gets bent Was it only the
No,
low
scattered.
Scattered, but it's the wavelength of the light
Yeah,
that
it's
penetrates.
1 over lambda to the 4.
Right, and that's the blue light.
Really
So
scattered,
blue light
yeah.
is what? The low wavelength or the high wavelength?
Low wavelength.
Okay, so only the low wave.
Yeah, the short wavelengths
Lengths
get scattered.
get scattered, and that's why we see blue.
More than the long wavelengths.
Right.
Here's another one.
All right, we'll be keeping track so that we can get a definitive answer here. So far, we've got Mike and Don both say yes, you can see the pinpoints of starlight from space. Who's next?
And when you're in space and you're looking into deep space and you're on the sun side of the orbit, the sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth.
All right, that's Leroy. He's a no.
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon.
The sky, of course, was black, but it had sort of a velvet sheen to it.
The biggest visual surprise was just how black the sky was. You have a brilliant sun, brighter than any sun you normally would see, even here in New Mexico. You have these extraordinarily high mountains. We were in a valley deeper than the Grand Canyon. But then you have this black sky, a sky blacker than black.
When you look out into deep space away from the sun, it's the darkest black you can imagine.
Just the inherent beauty of it, the velvet, bottomless bucket of the universe.
If you're there in the daytime of the moon, you see a full night sky of stars, even with the sun in the sky as well. You don't see stars in the daytime on Earth, not because they're not there, but because the atmosphere is aglow with scattered light from the sun. If you take away the atmosphere, the sun will still be there, but the sky goes dark. That's what the folks get when they go to the edge of the atmosphere, and they're calling that the edge of space. But when you get to the edge of the atmosphere is no longer between you and the rest of the universe, and the stars reveal themselves just as they would at night. So everyone knew this. So you see these photos.
I've often tried to explain the difference between darkness, when you turn out the lights and it's dark in here, or blackness. Blackness is the endlessness of it all. It's hard to comprehend.
Well, it certainly looks like these guys have no clue. So let's move on to the recap. So first, we found out that the plane tracking will be a few more days while I learn about the South Atlantic anomaly. Then next, we had a visit from a very strange astronaut about his career path. After that, we saw Geraldo Rivera act like a government shill. Then we got to hear Billy Nye, the lie guy, tell us that only one tape from Apollo 11 was missing, and he was close. You know, $12,999 off. You'll have to do the percentages at home, but it's pretty close. Yeah, really close. We saw that the Eurythmics knew that sweet dreams were made of balls. We watched the $35 million money grab. We saw a moon base is coming in 2050, right around the corner. We compared the ideas of science and religion and saw that they were the same. We saw them fake a lunar eclipse on Apollo 15. We listened to that Nye guy again tell us more lies, like it would be too expensive to fake what NASA is paying for anyway. We then listened to Neil deGrasse Tyson as he explained for us that it would be much easier to go to the moon than to fake it. I was going to argue with him, but then I remembered science is always right. Damn. Neil always gets me on that one. We then threw up. That was fun. Finally, we learned that some of NASA's astronauts see stars while others don't. So obviously, none of them have ever gone anywhere. Well, Buzz has been to Antarctica, and Neil has been to Wendy's. Don Pettit looks like he's been to jail, but I'm not sure. If you're enjoying my videos, or our Raw show on Monday nights on TFR, and you want to help us continue, we hate to ask, it's the worst thing of all things. But things are tight. I spent too much time on this and not enough on what feeds our faces. So ultimately, I got to thank the great people that have been helping us along the way. All my patrons, thank you so much. Especially Dave, especially Paul, and especially Mike. You guys have been tremendous. Michelle, thank you so much. And to all the patrons, especially PJL, Geyer Andrews, Doug D, Kevin F, Lynn S, Roy V, Stephen B, Shelley J, John W, Jamie Cisneros, Anthony C, and Ted P. Guys, I can't thank you enough. You've been a huge help. And to everyone else, my videos will always be free. If you don't want to support, that's just fine. I appreciate you guys watching more than you know. If you enjoy a video, please share it online in your social media. If you do have extra and are enjoying what I'm doing or finding it informative, you can always use any of the spots below. PayPal, you can use Amazon before you shop, or you can become a patron at the address on the screen. And if you have Bitcoin, you can check out coinbase.com/jeranism to donate there. Bitcoin is worth like nothing nowadays, so you can just send me all of it. Ha! Just kidding. Bitcoin is kicking butt. Check it out. So that's it, guys. Be kind, don't lie, and open your mind, because there's truth inside. Till next time, this has been Jeranism.